Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This lecture is on Database Migration Service or DMS. So what is DMS? Well, as you might predict, it's a way of migrating databases. So it's a cloud service that makes it easy to migrate relational databases, data warehouses, NoSQL databases, and other types of data stores. And you can use AWS DMS to migrate your data into the AWS cloud between on-premise instances through using an AWS cloud setup, and we'll look at how that works in a second, or between combinations of cloud and on-premise setups. So all DMS is a way of migrating your databases. You can migrate your databases onto the cloud, you can migrate your databases off the cloud if you want, and you can also migrate your databases between on-premise setups as well. So let's have a look at how DMS works. So at its most basic level, DMS is a server in the AWS cloud and it runs replication software. And you create a source and a target connection to tell AWS DMS where to extract from and load data to. And then you schedule a task that runs on this server to move your data. And AWS DMS creates the tables and associated primary keys if they don't exist on the target. And you can pre-create the target tables manually, or you can use a thing called the AWS Schema Conversion tool, which is called SCT, to create some or all of the target tables, indexes, views, triggers, etc. So we've got our source database down here, and then we have our source endpoint. We have a virtual machine that sits in the AWS cloud, and essentially it's a replication instance and it's running replication tasks. So it's taking data from our source endpoint and it's pushing it out to our target endpoint, and this is our target database. And this source database and target database, this could be on-prem, this could be in the cloud, this could be on-prem, this could be on-prem, or this could be in the cloud, and this could be on-prem. I'm not sure why you do that, but you can use it that way as well. So let's look at the different types of database migration service. So it supports homogeneous migrations. And a homogeneous migration is, let's say you've got an Oracle database that's on-premise and you want to migrate it to an Oracle database that sits on AWS. But it also supports heterogeneous migrations, and this is far more interesting. So let's say you've got Microsoft SQL Server on-premise, but you want to move this data over to Amazon Aurora. So you can do this using Database Migration Service because it supports heterogeneous migrations. So if we have a look at our different sources and targets, so our sources can be on-premise and EC2 instance databases. So we can have things like Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, SAP, MongoDB, and DB2. We can also have a source from Azure itself, so we can have Azure SQL databases. We can also do Amazon RDS, including Aurora as a source, and we can even migrate data from Amazon S3. And the targets that are supported are on-premise and EC2 instance databases, so it's the typical players. So we've got Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, and SAP. We also have RDS, we have Redshift as a target, DynamoDB, S3, Elasticsearch Service, as well as Kinesis Data Streams and DocumentDB. So those are our sources and different targets as well. Let's have a look at Database Migration Service in action. So we'll do a solutions overview. So we've got our on-premise database, and we've got our EC2 instance, which is running Database Migration Service. And essentially it's pulling the data from our on-premise database and it's pushing it out to RDS. Now that is for a homogeneous migration. Let's have a look at a heterogeneous migration. What we need for heterogeneous migrations is we need AWS Schema Conversion tool. So we've got our on-premise database. This might be Oracle. We've got our EC2 instance that's running DMS and SCT, so Schema Conversion tool. And then we might be migrating to Amazon Aurora. So we're migrating our Oracle database to Amazon Aurora. And you will need AWS Schema Conversion tool if you're doing a heterogeneous migration. You do not need SCT if you're migrating to identical databases. So if you're migrating from Oracle to Oracle, you won't need SCT. And you're going to get some exam scenario questions where it's talking about Schema Conversion tool. Essentially, you just need to look at other databases the same Well, if they are, then you don't need SCT. You can rule that out as an incorrect answer. But if the databases are different, then you will need SCT. So moving on to my exam tips, just remember the following. DMS allows you to migrate databases from one source to AWS. You can do homogeneous migrations, so this is where you've got the same database engines, or heterogeneous migrations. The source can either be on-premise or inside AWS itself, or another cloud provider such as Azure. And if you do a heterogeneous migration, you will need to use the AWS schema conversion tool, which is called SCT. So that is it for this lecture, everyone. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.